Okay, here's where we're at with all this. News broke this week that Hasbro was in talks with TenCent to sell some form of D&D IP licensing, maybe to make video games or maybe for the whole enchilada. News that turned out to be, well, actual fake news, and yesterday this was all confirmed. More on that after the intro. I'm Dave, this is the one and only RPG Rundown, and this video is... Hasbro and TenCent. Case closed. Now, if you haven't been following this craziness, it started a few days ago when a Chinese news site ran a story claiming that TenCent, a massive video game company and investor based in China, was in talks with Hasbro to sell the D&D IP in some unspecified form. And the story was that this was being facilitated by Larian, the makers of Baldur's Gate 3. This was pretty much exactly the scenario that Stephen Glicker of Roll for Combat had speculated on a while back, and it turns out the source cited was a company called Snow Leopard Financial Group, translated for me by Google as Snow Panther Finance and Economics for some reason. But Snow Leopard generates a ton of content that really looks written by AI, and this company has basically no other footprint anywhere and no real business history. So the current prevailing theory is that Snow Leopard scraped a transcript from Glicker's video making this speculation, and then they just based the story on that. Well, the case is now closed. According to Forbes, Hasbro has denied they are in talks with TenCent about this and also stated, quote, "We are not looking to sell our D&D IP." Now, note that they're careful not to say they wouldn't sell the IP, but just that they're presently not actively looking for it. Now, part of the story was that Hasbro had first approached Larian, but Larian lacked the capital for a purchase, so they instead facilitated talks with TenCent, who is one of Larian's investors. Larian has now also come out and denied this story, with its CEO stating, "It's silly that I should do a tweet about not buying something that is not for sale, so I won't. But in case you're wondering, we're not. Hope that clears it up." Now, I'm definitely no financial analyst, so take this with a grain of salt, but I think it's interesting that Hasbro stock dipped noticeably when this news came out and picked back up right after Hasbro denied it. It might just be a coincidence, but that's a very tight correlation. It seems like maybe shareholders did not like the idea of Hasbro selling the D&D IP in whatever form, even just selling the rights for video game titles. I also think this coverage has resulted in some good discussions about the future of D&D. Because even though it didn't turn out to be real this time, something like this is pretty plausible. That's why it blew up this week. I have to admit that I like the idea of D&D leaving Hasbro for some other potentially better caretaker, but I would want it to be a better caretaker, like a tabletop game publisher with a good track record. And I think many of us would sure like to stop hearing about surprise Pinkerton visits, unseemly OGL shenanigans, or even layoffs at the end of a year when executives made millions. As a longtime hobby gamer, I really don't like being affected by all this high corporate nonsense. And again, I'm absolutely not a finance expert, but much of this, especially the OGL crisis, has been very poorly received by customers and bad for Hasbro, and it just can't be good for the bottom line or for how the property looks to investors. Sure, producing and selling these games is a business, and making videos for these games like we do is a business too, but it doesn't have to be an exercise in the darkest side of corporateness. Then again, maybe it's unavoidable. Maybe D&D has simply gotten big enough that it has to be this way in the system that we have. I don't know, but I suppose only time will tell. What I do know is that the tabletop RPG world is more than just D&D. I care about D&D, I want it to do well, I want it to keep existing. But I also take comfort in the fact that there's so much passion out there and so many games from so many publishers. No matter what happens with Dungeons & Dragons in the coming years, well, I'll say this again, the sky isn't falling. Our hobby will still be here for us for many years to come, and it will be what we make of it.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Of course, it always helps us out if you like and subscribe. And check this video's description for a link to a few other cool things from Game Talk Network. Links to other channels in the Game Talk Network, like the Board Game Rundown, the Miniatures Rundown, and the Lorcana Rundown. A link to our Patreon for the Game Talk Network, where RPG Rundown is one of the pledge levels you can select. And a link to our GTN Discord server. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.